Alrighty, g'day guys, welcome to the patch review for Legion TD 3.5D/E. Alright, so we'll just jump right into this, do a TLDR at the end, and yeah, as normal. Alright, general, fix some tooltips and fix sand collision at King for spell immune units. This is like the Fire Lords sometimes wouldn't do what they're meant to do, so they should be easier to click and a little more spaced out, a little more logical. But our collision size is reduced. This is really nice. Makes him just a bit faster, a bit more aggressive early on, which he did struggle with, so I like this change. All sends on non-boss waves spawn slightly earlier, which is good. Once again, the sends were a little too weak on a lot of these early levels, so I'm happy about that. Level 10 sends come a bit earlier. I mean, that's fine. I haven't noticed like a massive difference with that personally. So it just is what it is. Ghoul has some more HP. It's nice for Ghoul, but you know, you're still going to see Ghoul in the same time when you would see Ghoul before, which is not very often. Horse, a little bit less HP. That's good. Horse is pretty strong, so I think that's good. All right. Cobalt reduces the attack damage by 3%, minimum 1 damage. This actually makes it a really legit send. Rather than stealing like a little bit of flat damage, this 3%, like, yeah, it's pretty bad against like Aqua and EA and all of these like small units, but like you get this fucking thing on a Butcher and it gets like, it can get to 100 damage by the time it leaves the lane. You gotta remember, not only is it taking that damage from the Butcher, but it keeps hitting it with that increased damage. So if like against Butcher Holder on 7, or even on 5 I guess, but it's not really needed on 5, like Butcher on 7, or any of these like bigger units, Scoutbold's pretty legit, so it's got its niche now, and I've seen it do some pretty dangerous things. So I really like that change, really good. Whelp, it now has a -1 armor when it attacks a unit. I mean, I believe this doesn't work against the King, but I'm not sure. Well, I actually don't know. I don't know at all. But yeah, this is like, it's a nice buff. Whelp is still like kind of whatever, but I mean, hey, it makes it better. I think sending Whelp on 2 is like pretty legit, instead of sending Dino. So yeah, Furbolg has some more movement speed. This is nice, particularly for level 2. Level 2 is back. I would say it feels like about where it should be, where if you get a Furb, it's not actually just easy to hold anymore. So that's good. Mutant slows the movement speed of nearby enemies by 30%, so maybe that finds a niche. It's a pretty short range, it's like 200 if I remember off the top of my head. Pretty short range, but maybe on like 16 or 12 it can help against a melee setup, but I'm not so sure about this one, honestly. I'm not so sure, because obviously on a melee level, reducing movement speed is not going to be that important. Alright, Murgle, a little bit cheaper, this is good. I think it's just a good change. Sorry, had to sneeze. Panda has 15 less HP again. Okay, sure. I mean, Panda's pretty strong, and it's still going to be pretty strong, so that's fine. Added explosion effect for Firelord kills. I really like this just because it was pretty hard to tell when the Firelord explosion actually happened, unless you obviously saw like 10 Spectres just die at once. Right, Kraken cooldown increased from 40 to 55. This is actually super noticeable. This makes it really difficult to send 3 Krakens on 15 unless the leak is like quite slow. I like this change though. It makes you think a lot more about sending. Maybe you like cover a teammate's Behemoth. If they do like Firelord double Kraken, you do Firelord double Kraken double Behemoth. Or maybe we see more like Infernals, more Maidens of Pain now. But this Kraken cooldown nerf, it's like, you can really feel it when you're playing. But I think it's good. I think it's good. It'll force you to choose other sends a bit more, which I think is cool. Right, Behemoth cooldown increased by 10 seconds from 25 to 35. This is good. This is particularly a nerf to 13, even more so than 14, in terms of just spamming Behemoths, but I think that is not a problem. So the armor aura is stronger, so it gives creeps 4 armor now instead of 3, so this means that like 1 Behemoth is better. but the attack speed was nerfed, the HP was nerfed, and the damage was nerfed, right? So like Behemoth as a unit that swings an anchor and does damage and has health is worse. Behemoth as a support for the wave is better, right? So it basically incentivizes sending less behemoths and more other units. What we've seen is that we still just kind of spam behemoths, but I'm not sure if there's been a lot of like testing or experimentation with like one behemoth only. I've been personally, if we're sending like 13, 14, I've been trying like 2 behemoths, and like maybe more gargoyles or spiders like Nerubians, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a good like step in the right direction to nerf behemoth spam without actually nerfing behemoth. In fact, I would argue that this is like a small buff to like level 15 and 17 and all that. And I also like that the armor aura is now stronger than Ferb's, right? It makes it feel worse to send a Ferb instead of a behemoth, which I think is cool. Anyway, altered the leak equation again, so rescale off the push more lumberjack means you need more value. That basically means if you're pushing up really high, you'll get taxed unless you have a reasonable amount of value, right? So if you've gone like 7-9, but you don't have very much value, maybe you'll get taxed. But if you're like 7-6 with that same value, maybe you don't get taxed, right? That's what that means essentially. I'm still not so sure how it works in a more practical sense, but that's the general idea behind it. All right, Priest and High Priest. This is just like quality of life changes, right? It doesn't actually make them like good units if they weren't already good in the spot you're in. But it stops it being stupid with Butcher. Because what it did do is the Butcher would steal the health, the Priest would go, oh shit, something to heal. And it did heal. And the Priest, and then because it's used its heal, the Priest is like, oh shit, I've used my heal, time to go forward. And it's like, yeah, wasn't so good. Obviously targets like higher value units to be healed now, which is good. So the Priest is going to heal your Hydra instead of your Null, probably, which I guess is nice. Medicine Man, same change with Butcher and same change with Priest, basically making the heal units smarter, which is good. Alright, Disciple. What this change essentially means, you know those like 1 or 2 creeps you sometimes just lose out of your lane with Disciple? That should happen, if not never, it should happen a lot less. What this seems to have done is actually buff Disciple a little bit, but that's okay. Like, that's okay. It's nice to get rid of the shit, and then if Disciple seems to be too strong because the missiles seem to be smarter now, if Disciple seems to be too strong, then it can just kick like 20 HP or something. At Dark Priest, targeting altered to act more similarly to other units instead of sniping Krakens. This basically means like when half the Centaurs are alive, the Dark Priest won't go like, ooh, Kraken, let's kill it, which is good, because that was really silly. It's worth saying on 3.45D, we're obviously playing E version now, but on 3.45D there was a really hilarious buff, bug. Whenever Dark Priest killed a unit, it would get extra range. So there's a screenshot of like a 6,400 range Dark Priest. I remember I was playing a game, I think I might even have the recording. Not sure if it's uploaded yet, but I think I might have the recording, where I was on teal, and a Dark Priest on purple spot just steals a level 12 creep from me, and like from their lane to my lane, and just fucking sniped it down. Priest Kyle, again, Quel'Thalathian sniper. But yeah, that was a really funny bug, but this is good. Right, Dark Mage. Mind Warp is now value adjusted, meaning its attack speed buff has a range between 20 and 40%, depending on the target's value, and it used to be 30% flat. So what this basically means is that cheaper units that would get a Dark Mage buff now get a bigger buff, and expensive units get a smaller buff. So it's a nerf to like Dark Mage Hydra, Dark Mage Doomsday, Dark Mage Meridian, Dark Mage Phoenix. It's a nerf to like these sorts of units, and it's a buff to like your early game Dark Mage setup. So like Dark Mage on like Polar should be like solid. Dark Mage, maybe EA and Nightsaber are like slightly better than they used to be, or maybe they're about where they used to be. Maybe like Dark Mage Ghoul is a little bit better, for example. I know this had a problem with Nightsaber where it gave it the full 40% buff. Nightsaber is obviously not less than 100 value. But besides that, this is good. I like the I like the intent behind the change, which is basically like, don't gut Dark Mage in setups where like Dark Mage isn't really strong. Like, still make it good in setups where it's not really strong. Just make it less overpowered, or hopefully not overpowered in the setups where it is really strong, right? Because like the average case of Dark Mage was not that insane, right? Like, it was pretty good, but if you've got like Dark Mage buffing, I don't know, like Revenants on 15, it's like kind of whatever, right? But now Dark Mage buffing Revenants on 15 is going to be better. It's just Dark Mage buffing Hydra or Griffin or all those expensive units, which is where it felt really, really strong, is going to be less strong. Anyway, Phoenix is less ridiculous, doing silly things that it shouldn't do, like never dying on 18. That was interesting. We had a game that we should have won that the enemy team did decide to forfeit out of sportsmanship, but they had no mid on 18, except that there was one Phoenix on Blue's lane that refused to die and constantly respawned until it eventually killed the wave. For context, the enemy team ended up on 0 heals and like very little HP, and by the time the king had killed every single creep that was on the king, this Phoenix was still killing units on its line. So yeah, we're in like Phoenix fucking limbo, which was pretty interesting. Phoenix purgatory, we'll call that. Alrighty, cool, done all that. That is the patch review. Now I'm just going to do a quick TLDR at the end, just for anyone that wants to skip ahead. So, Blood Orc, smaller, faster, better. All sends, earlier. Level 10 sends, earlier. Ghoul, more HP, Horse, less HP. Kobold's good versus Butcher and big units, but it's still shit versus small units. Whelp has a little bit of corruption, still like okay. Verb is faster, better on 2. Mutant slows nearby enemies, I don't see use for it. Mogul's cheaper, Panda's squishier. This is visual. Kraken has higher cooldown, makes it harder to send 3 Krakens on 15. Behemoth is a worse single unit but gives a better buff, and you can't send as many of them. Maybe send other units on 13-14 as well. Priest High Priest doesn't go stupid with Butcher, doesn't go stupid with Butcher. You should not leak single creeps. This will stop being bullshit sniping Krakens on 15. This is better on small units and worse on big units. And this won't have the bugs that it had, hopefully. So yeah, that's the TLDR. Anyway, cheers very much for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, all of that, and I will catch you in the next one.